Okay, to discuss Putin's speech, we're joined by journalist Neil Clark from Oxford. Now, Neil, Putin did say during his speech that the US and Western nations are destabilising the world for their own gains. Do you think that that statement is accurate?
I think absolutely. I think by any objective assessment, that's what's been going on, isn't it? Russia, let's be honest, is being punished really for its independence. I think President Putin made a very good point, I think, when he said that the sanctions were not imposed because of Crimea. That was only the excuse. That was only the pretext. We've seen a whole load of countries around the world being sanctioned by the US for various so-called stated reasons. From Iran, we've had the longer blockade on Cuba, which they're talking about lifting just only now. The former Yugoslavia was sanctioned. Syria. We can go on and on about the countries, and all these countries were really being punished for having an independent foreign policy, for not doing what the US wanted it to do. And it's because Russia has, if you like, come back in the last 10, 15 years as a major player in the international sphere. Russia, for example, was crucial in blocking the US war plans for Syria not so long ago. So I think it's to do with the fact that Russia is getting in the way of complete global domination by the US and its allies. That's why it's being punished. That's why the sanctions were imposed. Okay. If the Crimean situation hadn't happened, there'd have been another reason for it. Well, another reason given.
Well, talking about the sanctions on Russia, which is affecting the ruble, it said that it may take, Putin has said that it may take a few years for the economy to recover. Do you think Russia will recover despite the ongoing sanctions?
I think it will do, and the reason is because the fundamentals of the Russian economy are actually very strong. It's not like 1998 when the ruble also fell dramatically, because back then the Russian economy had suffered a sort of 9-10 year period, a very bad period economically. But at the moment, if we look at the facts, Russia has got over $420 billion of reserves. It's got a $200 billion trade surplus. Actually, the great irony is that the public finances in Russia are in a much stronger state than the countries who are, if you like, attacking Russia at the moment, like the US, the UK, the countries that are crowing about the so-called Russian economic collapse. Their economies, the Western economies, are actually in a worse state because they're more indebted. So longer term, the fundamentals are strong, and that's why currently the rate of the ruble doesn't really bear a strong relation to actually the strength of the Russian economy. And so I think that Putin is right. I think that the fundamentals are strong in the Russian economy. It has to diversify away from oil. Everybody knows that. But I think longer term, medium and longer term, then the prospects are very bright. And of course, in the medium to longer term, the rate of the ruble will reflect that.
Well, of course, Putin was adamant that the BRICS Union is an opportunity for Russia to help its economy grow. Do you think he'll be relying on it more now that the sanctions are still in place?
Yes, I think so. I think we've already seen big deals done between Russia and India in the last few weeks, and Russia and China, energy deals, and South Africa as well. We mustn't forget about South Africa. There's been energy deals with South Africa. So I think that what Russia will be doing is looking more and more again to build up even stronger economic partnerships with countries that aren't really under the US's thumb. We've seen a very interesting deal with Turkey, for example, that was done only a few days ago, even an energy deal with Turkey. So I think that Russia basically is having to diversify and having to strengthen the links with those countries, which basically aren't sort of US puppets anymore. Unfortunately, I think Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, made a very interesting point when he said Russia kind of underestimated just how under the US control the EU was, because these sanctions on Russia are absolutely suicidal for the EU and for Britain as well. A lot of European companies are losing out millions of euros, billions, in fact, perhaps over the medium to longer term, because of these sanctions. And yet our leaders in Europe are sort of crowing about these sanctions and talking about imposing more, even though they're against the interests of the European economies. It tells us, I think, just how under the sort of control of the US we all are here in Europe, unfortunately, and our leaders are not acting in our best economic interests by sanctioning Russia.
Okay, Neil, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for that analysis.